Hey guys, what's up and welcome to a new Tesla update video. So today, as usual, let's go over the market. Let's go over Tesla. Pretty wild day. Tesla outperforming the market quite severely. However, there is, of course, at least in my opinion, some pretty, I wouldn't say massive warning signs, but absolutely definitely some warning signs to consider here. So let's go over all that. As usual, if you enjoyed the video, find it helpful, informative, useful, or whatever, don't forget to hit that like button. Ladies and gentlemen, it does help quite a lot. On top of that, again, none of this is financial advice. Make your own decisions. Do your own research. The market is closing in just about a minute. Tesla should be closing somewhere around this general level. So we'll say about 207, which is putting Tesla up about 3%, which is actually quite phenomenal, to be completely honest. I'm not really sure why it's up. Maybe I missed something, but it's up a decent amount today, which is quite impressive. More specifically because the market is obviously, not substantially red, but, definitely lost all of its green in the morning. And, only down 1%, but, if you take into consideration from its peak to show today, it's down almost 2%, right? For like SPY, for instance, which is a lot. At least for the market, that's a fair amount, right? Now, so relative to the market, Tesla, actually a pretty good day, honestly. However, the candle you can see that it's forming today is not very bullish, right? So we'll go over everything together right here, right now. So let's just jump into it. So yeah, today we ended up going as high as pretty much 214, right? I did talk about how after yesterday's close, the chances of it coming up to around 210 seems, pretty likely, like a pretty, respectable, decent chance of it getting up there. It exactly did that today. And most importantly, it actually got rejected at this general 210 level, right? It's a very important level. And again, the highest I was expecting was around 220. So I don't think we'll go there anymore. I do think this actually might be the top. But with that being said, I'm not like super confident that we don't go higher, but I am, fairly confident we don't. Now let me explain. So first and foremost, I guess the better way to put it is until Tesla falls out of this channel, I guess I'm not super bearish yet. However, it is starting to look like the signs are starting to show that, the bearishness is going to start very soon. So essentially, I'm expecting something like this to happen to Tesla, that happened to SPY, relatively soon, honestly, maybe even as early as tomorrow or probably early next week, right? So Tesla's essentially, right now, Tesla's pretty much right here, right, is the way I view it, right up here. And I expect something like this to happen pretty soon as well and come down from this channel and start moving back down southwards. So it could happen as early as tomorrow, and I wouldn't be surprised if tomorrow we actually retest 200. That wouldn't completely shock me. Most likely bounce. Now, I want to make it very clear, I don't expect Tesla to crash or anything like that just yet. I do think we're going to go a little bit sideways action first. But nonetheless, regardless of what happens from here, I don't believe the upside here, from here at least, as of right now, from this specific exact spot that we're at, to go higher. I don't think that there is a very good chance of it. And even if there is a chance that we do move higher, I don't think it's much higher, right? I think personally the best case scenario from here for Tesla to go any higher is about a 6%, which is a decent amount, which is actually a fair amount. Still, 6% is still a lot, but the chances of that are not extremely high. And essentially, when you talk about a risk versus reward, in my opinion, you're risking a lot more downside than you are upside. Like, you're playing for potential 6% upside for a potential, like, honestly, I would at least, like, in my opinion, like at least a 13% downside minimum, in my opinion, if we do break out of this channel, which I'm pretty sure we will. So keep that in mind. On top of that, I think Tuesday or Wednesday is CPI day. The market tends to be very unhappy about that, right? But just before we move into more of Tesla, again, taking a look at the broader market, because it does affect Tesla. It's very important, right? SPY breaking down out of this channel, which is not great. And you have the VIX breaking out of this channel that we've been talking about, which is good for the VIX, but obviously bearish for the markets, right? Bearish for the overall broader market. So that's something to very much consider, in my opinion. Just my opinion, of course. Now, pretty decent volume today on a, technically a red day. I mean, it's a green day, but technically a red day because we did close out lower than where we opened, right? So that's not like ideal. The fact that it's still held on this well is fantastic, but this is a pretty bearish looking candle. I believe this is a doji candle, and there's probably, I think there's another name for this type of candle up here as well. So I forgot the name of it exactly, but I'm pretty sure if the next candle that we get is essentially this copy pasted over here, the sense of also being like an evening star or something like that. There's so many different names. I forget all the names for all the different candles, but just from like the look of the candle is what I personally just remember, right? I don't remember the name specifically. This is a bearish candle, right? Because I mean, I think this is a pretty obvious one. This doesn't need much explanation, but in case you still want it, right? Essentially, you're obviously seeing a lot of pressure, selling pressure from up here at a pretty important level to reject that in theory, of course, right? Which is a lot of, supply here. So that's important to reject, I guess, in theory, right? It's a pretty massive area. On top of that, you also have, of course, the fact that it's red is like a little extra check mark. That's not, in my opinion, the biggest deal here, but it's not helping the cause. And it's also ending near the bottom of it, right? So just a lot of selling pressure, and this is usually a reversal type candle. Again, it doesn't mean it has to happen. Nothing is guaranteed, but it is definitely more bearish than bullish, right? It is what it is, right? But again, if the Tesla ran as much as it did, which is just an absolutely astronomical run from the lows to the highs, pretty much a straight up double, if not slightly more, you're expected to get some kind of pullback at some point, right? You can't just keep going up, 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 and just pretty much skyrocketing up and pretty much never seeing a red day in your life ever again. That just does not happen. On top of that, we also have the 150-day moving average at 220 and the 200. If I switch it on, I mean, we could switch it on, I guess, but if I put on the 200-day moving average, you'll see it not much higher. I think it's around 230 the last time I checked. Yeah, it's at 226, right? So absolutely astronomical resistance, on top of course, also being on top of being pretty much close to that upward part of this channel. So again, the best case scenario as I still see is about 220, which essentially is actually coming to the upward part of this channel. Otherwise, I don't think we'll go much higher. Taking a look in the weekly as well, right? You can see this is also a pretty important level to reject. So check this out, right? So if you take the Fibonacci on the weekly all the way from this arguable swing high to this arguable swing low, right? You can see the 0.5 is sitting at 206, which is more or less where we're at right now. So and the way I view it is like this: if Tesla tomorrow is a red day, which I think it will be, but you know, just in case it isn't, right? It could not be, but if it is, and more importantly, if Tesla does close lower than 207 to 206, essentially lower than this 0.5 level, which again, my level isn't drawn to absolute perfection, right? So keep that in mind, right? Could be a little bit lower, could be a little bit higher, but essentially around this 206, 207 level, if we close below that on the weekly, which of course tomorrow is the final day of this current weekly candle, that to me is going to be not ideal, because that means that it's rejecting at a very, very, very common area to reject. And if there is an area to reject, as you know, the next step from above where I talked about last time, which was 180, this is absolutely the next level for sure to reject, right? And if not here, then I think we'll go to 220, and like absolute best case would be 230. But this is definitely a very like common place, or like a very, I don't know, I guess understandable place, if that makes sense, to reject if there is one. So just keep that in mind, right? Just, you know, just keep the warning signals out there or whatever, right? But again, until Tesla falls out of this channel, I wouldn't flip completely and utterly bearish on it just yet, right? This channel, as long as it remains intact, still bullish. But again, if and when it falls out of this channel, that's when you can really start getting more bearish, right? The RSI and the 1 hour, you can see as we're going like straight up to the top right, RSI is doing essentially the opposite. That's pretty much a bearish divergence. And on top of that, of course, combining what the VIX is doing and what SPY is doing, it just, the market looks a lot more bearish than bullish as it stands right now, which of course, unfortunately, also applies to Tesla. So just keep that in mind, ladies and gentlemen. That is, of course, very important to overall consider. But that is kind of what I'm thinking. Now, of course, the main thing is, okay, well, let's assume this is the top. Let's just, in theory, assume that, okay, you know, fine, whatever, fine, this is the top, whatever. Where do we go? You know, how far do we go? Well, let's talk about that, right, very quickly. So assuming this is the top, right, not confirmed just yet. This is, of course, this is a top signal. This is a top sign, but it doesn't have to be one if it doesn't follow through, right? So in this case, this could still be a fake out and a bear trap, essentially, right? It just depends on what happens tomorrow and Monday, in my opinion, right? If this ends up following through into a bearish follow through, then yes, this is most likely the top, and we start making our way back down, and we're not going to go higher than this for the next couple months, in my opinion, at least. But again, that's not the case, or doesn't have to be the case. But assuming it is, where can we draw down to? How far, how low can we go, right? My ultimate price target, I really wouldn't be surprised if we go down to around this 144 level. This to me would not surprise me. And I don't think this will happen like over like a week. I think this will take like, honestly, maybe a month, really, like about a month, I would say it would take for this to happen. Maybe two, right? Something like that. But I do believe that the ultimate price target would be somewhere around this overall level. It could be, as if Tesla's like somehow extremely bullish, could be even only just like a 170. Then it'll be 160, and then ultimately I think my main price target for this drawdown before we finally get our bounce, and then we can start making our way even higher around 150 to 144, essentially right on this gap fill right here, which is pretty perfectly aligned. So that would be my personal main realistic price target, right, all the way right down here, again, which I think will take about 2 months, but we'll see what happens. We'll see where it actually takes us. Again, I don't expect Tesla to just straight up crash right this very moment, but it's definitely starting to look a little toppy. I know people are going to think that I'm saying that because I'm bearish and, oh, I want it to fall. The only reason I'm, I guess, bearish is because, well, first of all, obviously the stock just completely skyrocketed, right, very abnormally, which I guess it abnormally fell, but you can see what happened after that. It also abnormally went up, and now it's doing the opposite. So, you know, you can't have it only one way. Just because it, you know, fell this hard doesn't mean it can't rise up, and just because it went up this hard doesn't mean it can't do the same thing back down. That's just kind of how, especially Tesla moves, right? But the reason I'm also like bearish is because, well, I mean, I'm seeing bearish indicators here, right? I'm seeing bearish takes right here, and also because, not because I have a bearish position necessarily, but also because I entered the bearish position or I guess sold calls, which is semi-bearish, mainly because I see bearish things starting to happen, not because I enter them and then start looking for bearish signals. It's the opposite, right? I enter them because I'm seeing potential bearish signals. I'm seeing potential top-ish signals coming, if not already here. And that's kind of how I'm personally looking at it, right? I know a lot of people get upset at that because they just think that, oh, stocks only go up, I'm here to make money, and I only want to go up and nothing ever goes down, and if you think it goes down, you're an idiot. I know people like to say that kind of stuff, especially on Tesla, but it is what it is, right? Those people will always learn the hard way. But all that being said and done, ladies and gentlemen, that's kind of what I'm foreseeing. Again, not expecting a straight up crash or anything just yet. I just expect, some consolidation, if not a retest of 200. But until Tesla breaks this channel, I am not straight up just flat out bearish just yet, right? Because as long as it's in this channel, to me, the upside to 220-ish is still very much in play. But if we break down, then in my opinion, it's no longer in play. So that's what I'm seeing. That's what I'm thinking. Take into consideration everything I said with SPY and VIX as well. Those are very important things to consider. So yeah, thanks for watching, guys. And I will see you, of course, as usual, for the next one. Also, by the way, quick note, I know everyone's saying that, March 1st, we have the investor day, which, by the way, don't get me wrong. I know I sound bearish on TSLA. I'm exceptionally bullish on actual Tesla itself as a company. I absolutely love the company. And I'm very excited for that, for investor day myself. And everyone thinks that, oh my God, this is gonna be so amazing. And there's no reason for it to fall because if investor day is coming up. It's almost always the opposite, right? Everyone's excited for the event, the stock rallies into it, and then the event happens and the stock sells off. That happens almost every single time, and it's kind of funny to watch people constantly fall for the same trick over and over and over. So just keep that in mind, guys. Take your emotions aside. I know Investor Day is fantastic for TESLA. Doesn't mean shit for TSLA. Just keep that in mind. The sooner you learn that, I promise, the better. All that being said, thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you tomorrow. Peace.